All right, here we're being given a two-variable linear equation. We're asked classic questions of finding slope and finding the y-intercept. I'm going to talk about finding the y-intercept first, and then I'll backtrack and talk about both these at the same time. First and foremost, the y-intercept by definition is the point that has 0 for an x value. Again, the first number in the ordered pair being 0 simply means x equals 0. And so to find the y-intercept, I simply am going to plug in a 0 in for x. And yes, this is how you do it every single time. Plug in a 0 for x. That term zeroes out. I get negative 8y equals 1. Divide both sides by negative 8, and I get y equals negative 1/8. This is the y value of the y-intercept. And so that is the y-intercept right there. Okay, now the issue is going to be actually we can solve for both the slope and the y-intercept if we put this equation in y-intercept form. So give me 1 second. I'm going to reset and I'm going to show you how to find both of these things at the same time. All right, this y equals mx plus b formula that I have here is called slope-intercept form because when you solve an equation, a two-variable linear equation for y, the coefficient or the number in front of x is the slope and the constant term is the y-intercept. Let me show you what I mean here. If we take our equation 6x minus 8y equals 0, and now instead of plugging in a number for either x or y, I solve this equation for y. So let me do that real fast. So I would subtract 6x from both sides, subtract 6x from both sides, and then that would give me negative 8y equals, I'll do negative 6x plus 1. I could do 1 minus 6x, but I like having the x term first, so it looks a lot like this slope-intercept form up here. Now I'm going to divide everything by a negative 8, and so that would look like this. When I divide an equation by anything, it's important that I divide every term in the equation by that number. So in this case, the negative 8 cancels that negative 8. I'm left with y equals, and now negative 6x divided by 8, these negatives cancel. What I'll get is 6/8 x. And then plus 1 divided by negative 8 is negative 1/8, or subtracting 1/8, which is the same thing. What I should do is reduce 6/8. That could divide these both by 2 to get 3/4. So let's do that real fast, always reducing our fractions. So this is now 3/4. And here is the beautiful thing, that first we get this right here, this number, this constant being added or subtracted on here is the y-intercept value. So from that, actually, and our previous work, we know that the y-intercept is 0, negative 1/8. And then our slope is just this coefficient in front of the x here. Our slope is not 3/4 x. Our slope is actually just 3/4.